It's actually good practice. It's like looking in the mirror, but you just have to. It's all motion control. Like just don't like spaz out in any way.
Yeah.
But you realize that like you kind of spaz out inadvertently all the time, and that's just called like talking. But like when you're looking at yourself, it seems like something far more, you know, more peculiar. Like it's hard. It's like you don't realize you have a personality until you watch a video of yourself, and you're like, oh, I have like a personality. Like that's like I have like spent years trying to develop that hideous, pointless, rambling nonsense blob. It took
Man,
years and years.
I noticed something like that. I saw a video of myself. I noticed I just do this like horrible, just like laughing at everything like pointlessly. It's just, it's so painful. But I don't know, that's how you get better or something. You just don't hate yourself. It's interesting, you know, podcasts look easy, then you listen to yourself back and you're like, wow, I'm really coherent.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to manipulate the audio because your volume is not coming in that
No,
much.
it's not loud enough.
It's loud enough, but it's not incredibly loud. Let me see if I can get user settings, voice and video, output, or is that me? No, that's you. So talk. Or I think I changed your output a lot. Did I get louder?
No, you're the same.
You're like twice as loud. So parfait.
Right.
Actually, I would if I were you, I would be like less cavalier about what you say because it's just gonna screech into the.
It's booming. All your roommates will hear.
Yeah, and they'll find out that I'm consorting with a racist, and they'll a profligate racist, one of the new Trump light, the West Coast.
Oh man, Trump heavy.
The video game Trump.
Oh gosh, yeah, Twitch, alt-right Twitch mogul.
I heard a comedian say that like people, call Trump, like you said, he was good for comedy, but really it was like how Chernobyl was good for oncologists.
I wouldn't even say he was good for comedy, honestly.
I wouldn't even say Chernobyl was good for oncologists because in the Soviet Union, you get paid the same amount no matter how many people you work on.
Well, he might be saying that it was good by increasing the knowledge of oncologists by providing a giant like open air case study, like those natural trials, like it's not
good for their reputation, I guess.
No, it's good for their knowledge. At least in theory. I mean, I thought they just evacuated everybody. So
I don't think Trump was good for the comedic knowledge. I think. Sorry, it's
it's
not a fair comparison.
What's that metaphor? Yeah, no, you're right. His metaphor is basically saying oncologists got a lot more work. But you're right. In the Soviet Union, that's a funny point. You should. That's great. Yeah, the analogy breaks down in kind of a humorous way.
Now I think I have the Omicron because I'm coughing.
Oh, don't worry about it. See, I don't like Trump because I prefer people who win elections, actually. He's a loser.
Yeah, that's why you voted for him, right?
No.
I didn't vote for him, actually.
I didn't either.
I was surprised. I was like, I thought I would cave in to the masculine raw energy and feel the need to be ravished by it and just want him all around all the time.
How manly is that?
But I ended up being my own man. And not a butt slave to Trump. Yeah. Trump's butt slave, dude. Do you think Trump has a person that he just has installed as like furniture in some room in the Trump Tower?
That's funny. I'll pay you $1 million just to stand here.
Yeah, and by some person, I mean many people. Like, realistically, probably be several people.
No, I mean just the operation of a business requires that. He doesn't.
Yeah, just to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company.
No, I mean like the freaking bellhop at the desk most of the time is that there's sort of ornamental roles like. The carrier of luggage is that kind of like you can carry your own darn luggage. You don't need this person, this made up job. But no, he doesn't. He doesn't seem like that, honestly. He doesn't seem like sadistic I know it sounds weird, but
No,
it's
he
like
seems
just
like a
trying to.
polite enough guy sometimes.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think he's just trying to be the big dog and get a lot of money or
I
something.
feel like
He just says
for
Vulcan, like
2020, we should vote for him as like a gag.
2020.
And I feel like
2024.
10 years from now, when Trump is like dead, we
Yeah.
should become Trumpists or Trumpers or whatever,
Just to make
Trumpeteers.
this.
But like just do it like
That's so funny.
way when it's way over the hill.
Yeah.
And like
Well,
we're the
Spain
MAGA
or
hats
something?
like in like 2040.
Gosh, yeah. Well, by then people will probably be nostalgic about that. Or
Yeah,
something.
he'll be like the Reagan. They'd be like, yeah, he reinvigorated the Muslim ban that we needed, and that Muslim ban like really built modern America. That's what they'll say. What is that not subtle enough or too subtle? Will, you're losing your mind. What's going on? Will, it's like dead air, dude. What are you doing? This is prime time.
Are you recording?
I am recording.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I got nothing to say.
I don't know. I think it'd be hilarious if in like 30 years, sorry, not 30 years, like 20 years, people view Trump like, you know, how like conservatives in early 2000s viewed Reagan, where he was like this like restorative force that like made America great again. And like they actually believed it just based on like their personality and swagger and like
it's entirely. I mean, it's entirely possible. I don't know. I feel like there's not that much left in the modern GOP. Honestly, they just kind of, you know, they're kind of out of steam, to be honest. It seems.
Yeah, I wish there was like wasn't so like the two party. I wish there was like it was a multi-party system and we had people that were like the furniture party, and they just wanted like nice home furnishings at a moderate cost. They can be provided, you know, and
I know something more tangible than like, yeah, but you're right. It's these two. Well, I think there's these two parties. Either one has their own major stakes.
Yeah, or what about the party that really likes to scuba dive and it just does that avidly? And
yeah, you want. See, that's the thing.
That's not their platform, but like that's how they sponsor themselves.
Well,
we're the scuba divers.
Everything they do, yeah. They deny it, but we know. You've seen their flippers dripping in the shower. But yeah.
Okay, so we're here on official business. By the way, this isn't just circle jerk, web circle jerk. This is official business.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about.
We're talking about art. Talking about a movie that is artistic, not autistic, but artistic.
No.
And it's called Children of Men. It was based off a book, or it wasn't. I don't know. But
it was.
It was based off a book.
But he kind of, you're right to equivocate because it kind of wasn't. It's kind of like how with that other movie, you know, No Country for Old Men, or no, not that movie. There Will Be Blood. Like that movie was based on a book, but not really. Like the guy barely even read it. He just like knew about it. Sort of.
A lot of great movies are like riffs on like stories. They're just like they're like they run parallel to it, but they're not in the same lane.
Yeah, exactly. It's all. It's like he read the Dust Jacket. He was like, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and then the other thing is that the director for this was Alfonso Cuarón. Crayon.
Yeah.
I call affectionately I call him Alfonso Crayon. Sorry, I say crayon. I don't know what the fucking crayon is. Sounds like a ray gun. But yeah, Alfonso Crayon. And he's like Mexican. Like he's a Mexican director.
Yeah, he's darn good too. He's got those long. He's kind of like Paul Thomas Anderson with the long shots, but he just like really takes to the next level.
Oh yeah, he's like. But in this movie, they're so good that I'm like, I'm like rethinking like cinematography entirely, and also editing because they go together. And then you're like, what? Like, you know, these shots like when they're running down the hill chasing after the car that has to be kickstarted. And the character, like there's a character named Patrick who like chases them down, and he has a shot. He's like, oh, I have a clear shot. Should I take it? And he gets like smacked by the door, and he fucking keels over into like the bale of wheat or whatever it was. And, I was like, that's like this is like so. It's like low budget, but the amount of work like makes it feel rich, and I just thought that was so cool.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's very simple, but somehow like it's really tense, and you're on the edge of your seat, which is funny because like I don't know, it's not they didn't have to throw everything into the bag to make something really good. Although I think there are, I wouldn't say it's low budget. Honestly, there's a lot of special effects in that movie.
No, I'm saying
but
that particular
kind of low
that
key.
scene was low budget.
Oh yeah, no, it's just a handful of stuff, just like running down a muddy hill, but they really make it work.
No, the film is very seems high budget. And in fact, we should Googleplex the budget right now. I'm going to. Oh, what's the children? That movie when it come out? It came out 2000 something.
Like maybe 2010.
2006. Wow, that's early.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's really good for when it came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I find I feel like it could have been done better with a different director. You know,
Dude, that's crazy. It lost $6 million at the box office.
Dude, like most good movies lose. That's what people don't realize. It's like they're vanity projects as an initiative, but then over time they become classics and they make more money in various ways.
Yeah. Wait, what'd you say? You thought it needed a better cinematographer? What was it?
I felt like the cinematography was pretty good with those long shots, but I felt like it was too zoomed out and depersonalized, sort of disconnected, kind of clinical. The color gradient was a little too blue for me. I felt like it could have been more of.
It's cold.
They could have. It was like decidedly cold, and I felt like they could have made it like warm at spots just for the contrastive effect that you kind of like in movies. And it was so grim. It felt like it was preachy.
It's kind of objective, That coldness always makes me think of like objectivity, which I always think is a cool effect to have,
I love, by the way, the genre it's in, like the sci-fi / thriller.
Yeah, there's kind of like weirdly sort of comparatively few movies like it, especially like artsy sci-fi. I would say there's not. Well, just compared to like of all movies, like
it's a lot like Blade Runner. Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, and there aren't many movies like that. Honestly, there's like a handful.
But this one is odd because the main character isn't actually a badass. He's sort of like a bystander that's just like bored enough to run around and.
Yeah, well, I think he goes from like apathy to, heroism.
Yeah, he goes from apathy.
Courage.
Yeah, he goes from apathy to heroism, but he's also, Clive Owen's a funny actor because he doesn't have. I feel like he's expected to sort of walk and talk a lot, but then if you watch a show, like I watched a show recently where his facial expressions were really involved and his acting was like brilliant. It was just a TV show, but then you see him in like movies and he's like stone faced a lot. And I just think it's like I don't know.
It's a waste of his talents or something.
I think so. Yeah, I think he has more personality to the show than the movies he's in.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I mean he's kind of like a blank slate. Sort of. It's not. I don't know.
He comes across
for some reason, I don't really like Julianne Moore. Like I saw Magnolia recently.
So annoying. Yeah, so annoying that
I don't know why. She just doesn't seem fitting in any role I've seen her in.
She's never no dude. I don't know who hires her into stuff. Now to be fair, she was in this movie like for like one scene. But then she still gets like top billing and whatnot.
But no, she's significant in the plot, though. I mean, she's there for several scenes, I'd say.
Oh, sorry, like one sequence, right? There's like a sequence where they pick up Clive Owen's the main character, right? They pick him up, and then
they kidnap him, and then he meets her. And she kind of hauntingly talks to him.
And they don't kidnap him. They like kidnap him, and then they let him go, and then he comes back, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing I didn't like was that they actually I feel like they killed her too quickly. Like I feel like she was such an interesting character that they killed her way too quickly. I felt like even though I'm not a huge Julianne Moore fan,
well, you're caring more about the story. It's not
at that point I'm invested enough that the story. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing I really like the Arab. You remember the Arab woman? that they were when they were in like the dead zone or whatever the fuck it was, like the no man's
Oh,
land.
the refugee camp.
Yeah, like the Palestine or whatever, the Gaza Strip or whatever it was of like London. I don't know what the names were. It's so
Was
far
she
out.
did she have a cat? Was she like the midwife kind of?
She was she was the Arab. They just called her like an Arab gypsy. That was I forget what her actual name was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she was good, and then she was really like had a lot of character. And
I don't really remember her, to be honest.
yeah,
Though she was kind of weird. She was like, oh yeah, because she didn't speak English, so she was like babbling in some foreign language.
yeah,
Like,
it was like hard to figure out what it was. And then they had this cop who was like a
yeah,
corrupt.
a bit like Sam Hyde, honestly.
The cop.
Yeah, it's just in a sense, he's like this big guy who's like kind of malicious, but he's also like he's also ironic, very ironic. The cop's whole thing was that he would like pretend to be oppressive and then like stop, and he was just cruel. It's like this cruel sense of humor, and then he ended up actually being a bad guy. It's just kind of an interesting character. I gotta say, it's hard not to just copy everything that Zizek said about it in his Pervert's Guide to Cinema or whatever. But there's stuff you can say.
Yeah, Zizek, that book is good, but it's like Zizek is like, I don't know. You just gotta watch your own movies at some point. Like this movie was so it's like the William Blake of movies. Like you want to be a good filmmaker. Okay, watch Children of Men. Like it'll make you a good filmmaker. So you want to be a good artist. You look at the prints of William Blake. It's just
yeah, it is like that. It's kind of its own thing. I really like. I mean, something he mentions is like this contrast between the background and foreground. I feel like it just gives you this sublime sense of like frisson or something. Like it just makes the hairs on your neck stand on end when you're.
It was in frisson. Yeah, I mean,
you're watching him like muddle his way through life while this like big history happens in the background. It's just kind of. It's very elegant. It's very interesting. And also a scene I really like is. I mean, everyone remembers the scene with the baby where they stop shooting, which again is just so simple but so like interesting. But definitely my favorite is when they're like walking through like the Arab, the Arab extremists, the Muslim extremists are like holding up some like, guy's body and they're like chanting and they're like holding up their AK-47s and yelling, and the protagonist and the girl and the baby basically are just like running backwards through them. They're really just like, it's just an interesting moment. Like, all this history is going on, but it's sort of not important. It's just sound and fury.
Yeah, there's a lot of background sort of choreographed violence and intriguing sort of dynamics. Sort of, it feels a little bit like a good video game in that way, where you have to run through a corridor and then you can't really like. There's an animation on the right or something that you can't.
Yeah, it is. But I would say that video games sort of never really nail that because. You can't have the elegance of it just barely happening off screen, because typically in a video game, like you walk by and you hear it and then you stop and you make the choice to listen. So it's never really in the background. Whereas in this movie, you're watching the guy and then in the background there's this whole other world going on, and it's done.
That is a good point. Although I don't think it's always true. I think there are video games where they have layers and background stuff, but.
The environment,
I mean, even like Halo is a good example, but you also have a Call of Duty and Battlefield, Medal of Honor.
I think probably Half-Life 2.
Zombie movies. Yeah, I was about to say about Half-Life.
There's just this
Left 4 Dead,
just so heavy.
A game that definitely wasn't like that was Fallout. Those Fallout games, because those Fallout games were really they were kind of like intimate. Like you actually had to like invest a lot to notice anything. And
Well, I would say Fallout is such a giant game that you can't really put that many flourishes on little details. Like you can't really have subtle things in a scene. I mean, what they would do sometimes, you notice this, is that they would have like skeletons in like funny positions, like people hugging in a bathtub with like whiskey next to them. That's a little bit of that like environmental storytelling, but like. It's kind of kitschy. It's not quite as subtle. I mean, it is subtle, but I don't know.
It's not that meaningful. It's not that meaningful.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same.
It's
I don't
kitschy
know.
though. It's like the decorations of like a taqueria. it's it's like a bottles
Yeah,
of hot sauce on the table. Kitsch, you know.
it's just this kind of simple irony that just gets done again and again. I feel like the whole Fallout thing is basically that. Like, oh, 50s. Oh, hey kids. Like, gosh, dude. Like, no one has actually said "hey kids" in an advertisement in like 60 years. Like, we gotta get over that. Enjoy soda pop.
Oh, well, that's kind of what's I like it because it's a back to basics kind of mentality. You know, it's like this approach of like, oh yeah, like we're gonna say like what we mean to say, but we've sort of forgotten to say. Like we what we mean to say is like you know how like people don't really like say the word man anymore, like in a serious
Yeah.
way. They always say,
No, I see what you. I see what you mean.
"I'm
Like,
a man."
you have
Like
nostalgia for like direct advertising, where they're like, "Hey, buy this product. You'll be happy when you have it." Like, geez, at least that's simpler. It's not this crazy,
this
sophisticated
real, yeah,
postmodern
it's like a
mind
robust
games.
simplicity. Yeah, and
Yeah,
and
yeah, I agree with that.
Children of Men actually sort of was like it didn't. I feel like it could have more of that to make it give it an eeriness that would make it like this appealing gloss to it. That would
Well,
give it layers and stuff. But it tried to be so
r-
realistic and modern that I just felt like it was a little
do you,
flat.
do you remember that advertisement he sees on the bus where it's like the world is falling apart, only Britain soldiers on? Like, you could argue that's
Okay,
what you're
that's
talking
pretty
about.
good. But that's
Yeah,
and they were playing this Orwellian nationalism that I felt like was like you know like as an American it's easy to be duped into thinking it's like ingenious, but then
yeah.
as a British person you've probably been hearing about that shit left and right for like 80 years, you know. And you're like they finally make a movie about it. Okay, whatever.
Wait, what are you hearing about? What do you mean?
Well, I'm talking about the whole totalitarian like you know Orwellian nightmare that's like impending and people pretending they're
Yeah.
happy and like that's like a played out theme
Well, I imagine particularly for British people, just
and particularly
you
for
know,
British people. Yeah.
they already all read 1984. I think it's kind of different though. It's not. It's there's something else to it. It's almost like I feel like in a way the movie is kind of the opposite of 1984 because 1984 makes everything I think very political and it just leans hard into like the horrors of totalitarianism. But Children of Men is almost like anti-political, like because the guy who's like, oh, we have to like rebel, we have to like use this girl to like start a movement and
Yeah,
destroy the government or something.
don't involve yourself in the political process. That process is outdated. It's failing. It's actually not failing. It's already failed. You're just not
Yeah,
aware that it's failed. And it's very. It reminds me of the culture we're in now, where there's like, take the
yeah.
vaccine. It'll save everyone's lives. And you take the vaccine, then your balls are fried. You can't reproduce anymore. And you're like, well, but the CDC said it was what I should do. The CDC.
Well, no, okay. Let me just. I disagree with that. I don't think that's.
Well,
I don't think that's true.
I'm saying it in jest, but like it's sort of like
No.
eerie. That's the tone that we're in. Like it's not like maybe the
Well,
reality, but it's
I think there's a paranoia which is unjustified, but on both sides, people are sort of looking for politics to save them from their unhappiness and their lack of vitality. I definitely think Children of Men is really resonant because it's just like I don't know if I'm just copying this from someone else, but like the sterility of Western culture is totally like just represented in a very literal form.
there's no sterility to Western culture, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I think there is. People,
What is
it's just
Western
this.
culture?
Well, I would just say like Europe
It's,
and the Anglosphere, basically.
no, but that's not. That's see that confuses me because
Okay.
I think when you say Western,
Yeah.
there's other. Okay, what parts of Europe? Because Europe's pretty big. There's also an Eastern
Yeah.
Europe, you know.
Yeah.
But that culture is pretty similar to the rest of the Europe too.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's obviously there's a boundary at some point. I would probably draw it, around Turkey, whatever the current.
Why would
EU countries
Turkey
are.
not be part of the West?
Okay, I'll get into that. I think Western culture is basically like a euphemism which secular people use because they don't want to say Christendom because it's not anymore. So it's basically like the sort of decaying remains of Christendom. Like that was a thing that was very.
But then
Clear
that
and
also
obvious.
includes Latin America. But do you include Latin America in the Western?
That's interesting. Yes, I would. I would include it. I think it's just kind of like it's sort of chauvinistic not to.
So you
'Cause
include
you're
them
right,
in the
it
West,
starts to.
but do they consider themselves the West?
I think they would.
Well, if they don't consider themselves white,
Well, some of them do.
some of them. I'm saying if the bulk of Latinos don't consider themselves white,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think there's more to it than just. Well, and also that's why I think that I agree with you that it's kind of like a wishy-washy term.
it's kind of a meaningless term.
I don't know. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, it's I don't know. It's like all the rich countries. We all have something in common. I'm not really sure what it is. You could say it's just like being called white, although that seems like kind of an odd.
Singapore's a rich country. It's not Western.
Yeah, I know. So I mean, is that it? Is it just
Brunei,
like is it just kind of
Saudi
just
Arabia?
a way to? Yeah, no, Dubai, of course, yeah. But I mean, would you just say? So what do you? Did you just say it's like white then? I don't know.
No, I'm saying that you're alluding to something.
You're just rejecting the term.
They're rejecting the term, and you're alluding to something that you don't have the word for, but you're just using Western as a catch-all for something you don't. It's like has like a dimly negative connotation.
I wouldn't say it's. I mean, I guess it's negative. Yeah, no, it is. It is negative. It's all these like. I think they all have a bunch of stuff in common, though, man. It's like these. Okay, rich. Like. Democracy.
Sorry, I'm looking at this photo of the guy of the Michael Caine character, and he's like he's all smiling and stuff, and his character in there is like really charismatic, and relatable and sort of human. And,
yeah.
But then he ends up getting killed, and it's like sad, and it's sort of it drives the characters onward. It divides a line between the good rebels, the bad ones. But I also felt like it was sort of like the best part of the movie was kind of like this guy is this, you know what I mean? Like the best part of the movie was something that was tonally the opposite. And it was inconsistent with the rest of the film tonically.
Oh, you mean just because the like friendship between the protagonist and the hippie guy was kind of like was sort of unusual in a movie that was otherwise so grim, but it was refreshing. But you're saying that like it kind of made a disjunction, which kind of made the whole film a little uneven for you. Is that what you're saying?
No, but you're close. What I'm saying is that the best part of the movie was something that wasn't even what the movie was about, which was and that bothered me. It made me think the movie was less good than maybe it deserves to be.
Wait, what exactly was the best part?
Well, like, I thought his character was vivacious, you know, to use like a $5
like
word.
You're saying he almost seemed like a main character of his own or something?
Yeah, he seemed like a more relevant character than the other people. And I was like, so why and then he gets killed. And then you're like, okay, well, this character is, you know, he got this funny retired political cartoonist living in this weird, he's just like an eccentric character. So you're thinking that the whole movie could be about this guy, but then the whole movie is actually about like how the world isn't like this guy.
Well, I think sort of sounds weird, but I think when you have a sci-fi movie, the setting is doing so much that you kind of have to go with a sort of neutral protagonist, because if you make it sci-fi and then it's like, and this guy's a total weirdo, like by any standard, then it's like too much for the audience to take on. So I mean, like, I think that guy as a character in the normal world would be kind of interesting, but it's just like the audience can sort of only handle
I totally disagree. I think he wasn't a total weirdo, but he was kind of weird, and I think that would have made in a sci-fi world that would have been enhanced the story.
Yeah, you're just saying it would make it even more interesting.
Yeah, but then they go with this like deadpan sort of blank slate character.
Yeah.
And the other thing was they had this one character, I forget his name, but he was named like Julian or something. He was like a rich guy, and he had all these like Picasso paintings.
Son, so he could feel like he still had kids.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like that character was interesting. You only get one scene, and then the rest of the movie, it's like they didn't have enough. They couldn't write characters, so they just had characters running around killing each other.
I don't know. I think all the kids. I mean, I was satisfied with the characters. I mean, you're right that they kind of don't really recur. You only see them once.
No,
It's
but
like a tableau.
like think of this movie. Okay, like look at the another one that's I think is similar in tone, at least in a sense, in a sense that it can contrast for the purpose of this discussion, which is Inglorious Bastards. I think that that's kind of like a high like a sort of a popcorn flick at this point. Not really like
I don't really like that movie, but I get what you're saying. That like
the characters
are stronger, and the characters basically just stick through the whole thing. It's way more character driven.
It's character driven, and this movie is not character driven, and that's
this movie is almost more about the setting, sort of.
But the setting is like it's just the color of the color gradient. It's color corrected. It's not really like a setting. It's just the camera is recolored. I don't know. It's like I feel like I don't want to labor to explain this. Like I feel like I'm laboring a little bit. It's like the camera, the setting isn't doctored that much for the most part. It's a pretty naturalistic setting.
I don't really know.
It's a lot of the shots are like the English countryside, the suburbs, the urban environment, and then they go to a point where it changes and they make it into like a war zone refugee camp place. But that's like at the end.
I think in the first part of the movie, even though it's similar to reality, it is very detailed in how the near future has all these little differences. I mean, in a way, it's almost like an allegory. It's a bit like the Pilgrim's Progress because it's about this like everyman guy, and it is sort of moralistic and symbolic or whatever. I mean, I like all that stuff.
You're saying, yeah, I don't hate the movie, but I think it's lacking so much that it ends up feeling hyped up. But I think that it's a cautionary tale, and that's the best thing it kind of has going for it. Is the message itself is kind of the only thing that's really great about it.
What is the cautionary tale? What do you see it as?
Well, it's just like you gotta be careful about population control and fertility rates and chemicals and stuff.
I didn't really see it. I didn't really see it like that. I mean, I thought
what are you talking about? The whole movie is about people can't reproduce anymore.
I know, but that's sort of like almost this inexplicable thing. It's not like the chemicals are in the water. It's just.
When I say chemicals, I say like, what else would make someone infertile? Chemicals, right?
Well, but that's the thing. It's like this kind of giant unanswered question. It's like, why did it stop and why does it suddenly start again? I mean, again, I see it as symbolic of. I mean, I don't know. It's not like. Well, it's not.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense because
you could say it's like the sterility of the whole world. It doesn't have to be just like Westerners or whatever, or rich people or anything. Although I do think honestly, I think there is a contiguity between Europe and the Anglosphere, which doesn't really obtain in Central and South America just because the policies were less racist. So you have like more indigenous people and more indigenous culture mixed in, whereas in America, it's just like, well, you steamrolled it, built a strip mall,
Yeah.
So it's very much a continuation of Europe in a way that Central and South America kind of aren't.
Well, there's a lot of white people in Central and South America that like pretend that they're not because.
Well, yeah. Well, and conversely, I'm sure there are mestizo people who are like whatever pretend. I mean, it doesn't. The category as well of like white or black is just kind of like a thing that doesn't really have the same like richness as the old national categories. Maybe I agree with people when they criticize. It's like white is like inherently oppressive. I know everyone gets like all uptight about that, but I do. I think it's like not a good way to refer to people. I mean, we're sort of weirdly stuck with it.
Well, it's kind of true though. I mean, that's what the white people have done.
Well, that's the thing. It like became true, but like it's
it became
no good.
True. Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be this way. I don't know how to fix it. Obviously, like no one does seemingly, but like maybe something is just make everyone. Maybe people should just relate to like their state. Like
I have this theory though. I have this theory that like after a certain point, after like slavery ends and stuff, I have this theory that like the racism was like went away, but like we just don't understand that because we don't understand how people used to communicate.
That's interesting.
Like
Well, you
we
could
would
just
look
say
back
that
at
it
it
was.
and be like, that's racism. Yeah. But it's like, well, maybe even back then they wouldn't have thought of it as racism.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is that it's causing people like needless harm, I think.
But I don't know when is harm ever needless. I mean, often. I don't know, man. I think we get what we deserve, right? It's like,
no, I disagree.
If I'm learning to skateboard, like I'm not going to be a good skateboarder if I never fall.
That's true. No, there's some degree of hardship to be endured in life, but the point is just, I mean, and from the ultimate perspective, yeah, like everything is in some mysterious way planned by God, I think, but like that doesn't mean you can just be cruel because, like, well, life's tough. Like when you just punch someone in the face, like it is tough, but the moral lesson is you're not supposed to make it any harder for anyone, I think.
The other thing I don't get is it's called Western. They're called Western, but most of them are from the North.
Well, yeah, especially these days.
Yeah, I mean, what about West Africa?
So that's why I'm saying it's a euphemism, because I think it originally came from, like, I don't even know, like what does that make this center? Like, let's see.
That's what I'm saying. There's no.
Oh no, you know it's this. There's the Mediterranean.
Greece is the center.
Yeah, well, Greece and Athens, which is probably
Egypt.
No, Greece and Israel, aren't they like on the same?
Greece, Israel, latitude? Egypt. Yeah, it's all there. It's all there. Mecca.
Yeah, so I think that's called the center because that was kind of the cradle.
No, but that was called the Near East, man.
That's true.
Called the Near East.
So where the hell's the center? No, the Near East.
Rome.
I think it would be. It probably would be Athens, honestly.
The center.
The Mediterranean literally means like Middle Earth, so that's it.
Yeah, you and your etymology. All right.
The Mediterranean is the center of the world. They're called Westerners because they're west of the Mediterranean and a little bit north. Once you start going.
But then I don't like to call it Western. It's like it sounds like they're talking about cowboys and shit, and cowgirls, and and dirty churches.
Well, I would also say that there's a very distinctive like ethos to. Honestly, I would say there's something to Western stuff, even apart from Christendom as such. Because I thought about how there's the Latin and the Greek Church, and how they used to be united under the Pope. But I think that the whole Latin Church like does express a kind of like vibe, or it has like a charisma which you don't see in the East, and just I think that charisma is carried on by the Anglosphere in a way that, even if it's like morphing and developing, it's like it's continuous in a way that I don't know is entirely true in Central or South America, even though I think it's kind of morphed into something bad now. It used to be Christian, now it's just secular and atheistic and like virulently so.
And you're saying that, but what I still don't understand what makes something qualitatively Western.
Well, maybe you could say that they're post-Christian countries, maybe. I don't know.
But most countries are post-Christian.
I don't think that's true.
Well, yeah,
for example, the East, the whole East was never really.
That's the point. No, they are. Well, they got over Christianity. Yeah, well, first of all, they were Islamic before they were Muslim.
Well, that's a thing. Then you can call them post-Islamic or something.
And then we sent the missionaries in there, and they got rejected. They got over Christianity real quick.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think you can. What I mean is post-Christian is like if your entire society, at least on the face of it, accepts it for a time. That is what I call. I'm referring to the country, not like you can have a missionary go there and convert like 5 guys, and then like it doesn't catch on, and everyone just kind of boots you out. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Jesus, there's exceptions to every category, aren't there? I mean, it just seems like there's something to perceive.
Well, that was like a third. England was like a second or third rate power for most of European history.
Yeah, it's true. And in the long scope, everything is like hyper recent. Well, I don't know. Wasn't England like a Roman colony for centuries?
A colony? Yeah, it was. So was Romania. I mean, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything that has geopolitical value.
Well, no, I mean, I think it makes it sort of count as, well, actually, I would say it makes it count as part of Europe, but then what about North Africa?
Yeah, well, maybe the North Africans are Europeans this whole time. We just didn't know.
No, you know what? It is Christendom because North Africa stopped, qualifying once it fell to the Muslim conquest. Bada boom, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think they couldn't. What's really funny is they invented distillation in the Islamic world, but then they also banned
Yeah.
alcohol.
What's distillation?
That's how you make spirits.
Oh, so they basically invented hard liquor,
And then they.
Hey, I mean, I don't blame them, dude. If I had to just, if that took you blindsided, it's kind of like how, like in the early modern period, like they imported coffee, and then like Kant would have like Voltaire would have like 70 cups a day or something.
Oh, well, those cups were like really really small.
Oh yeah, but at just the same time, it's like they didn't know what hit them. Like they were just going for it.
Well, apparently, like the lethal dose for caffeine is it's astronomically high.
Yeah, but like I just mean that I don't know. It's like when you get a new technology or really a new drug, especially if it's strong, you're liable to overuse it. Like I guess I don't know with the Chinese and opium or something.
Yeah, no, I mean the Chinese are yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, sure. And then the other thing is that I saw this movie. I just didn't feel like it had a message that wasn't already sort of being said by other outlets of media. Like
Like what?
Like every paranoid Philip K. Dick science fiction show movie,
Yeah.
anything.
What do they say?
Well, they just say don't trust the man, don't trust the society, man, the government, the corporations, the capitalism.
Well,
Don't
I think
trust
you're right, but there's something very positive, I think, to children know, which you don't find in 1984 or all those dystopian novels.
Yeah.
Like there's this cause for hope, and again, I'm probably just copying, plagiarizing Zizek unconsciously, but or semi-consciously. But there's that thing where you gotta trust that tomorrow will be better. Like the big ship is called Tomorrow, and you go out on a little boat. It's like a picture of faith. You go out, you can't see where you're going, but you just do it anyway because you trust in someone.
I trust so much.
Yeah, no, it's good to trust. I mean, if you're listening to a verified authority,
I do. What are you hammering in on? Because it sounds like
yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're saying don't trust who for what?
I'm not saying to not trust anyone. I'm just saying that I don't know. You have to have hope for tomorrow. Basically, the message, which you don't find in other dystopias. Like other dystopias, it's kind of this corny, what's that guy's name? George Carlin. Yeah, well, they told us that we could. They said that. Oh, you think you can make some of yourself in the world? Come on, kid, you're just naive. Don't you realize they're all just trying to screw you over? It's just kind of it gets tiresome at some point.
But doesn't it all get tiresome? I mean,
yeah, it does. But no, hope never gets tiresome.
But that's what I'm saying about Children of Men, though. It's the same tone as that George Carlin cynical comedy.
I know, but he doesn't end with but you know what? You gotta have hope. He would never say that. I don't think anyway. I mean, this is just an awkward way to express it, but it's positive, which is why I like it. It ends with, even if it's only a little glimmer of light. It's like in Lord of the Rings, I suppose, where
I don't know what's so positive about having one kid. I mean, isn't the kid going to be sterile also? It didn't even make sense to me.
Well, I don't. I think, I guess on the literal level, they're going to research what changed in her DNA. It's hope.
That sounds like if they couldn't figure it out without doing that, why would they be able to do it now? All of a sudden, didn't they have chances to do that when the whole thing makes no sense.
They could let that kid grow up and then use him to restart humanity.
I guess that's the problem with the sci-fi is that it really has to be accurate representation of the future, or else it's just full of plot holes.
Well, I think it's not. That's the thing. It's not meant to be literal. I mean, it is literal, but I think that's just how you express those things sometimes is through images. Again, I think it's about this kind of this sense that everyone has that nothing new can happen, and we're all everything's all played out and exhausted. I think people have that impression, and they're right to feel it. And so this is saying like, well, everything like sucks, but there's still hope somehow. Like there's new life coming into this world somewhere. You just have, if you see it, you should like help it out.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the thing. So it's not a direct statement about like.
I think the movie is so terrible.
I mean, for example, I think that like every country where the birth rate has like precipitously declined, which is basically the whole Anglosphere, Europe, and
that's
Japan
because people like inexplicably don't want to have kids.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like Children of Men is like dramatizing that, but I think it's just a depiction of the same. That's why I think it's, I don't know, it's not literally about that being imposed from the outside, or I don't
know. Yeah, I mean, it kind of is an inversion of what we're dealing with now, where people are waking up to the fact that they don't want to have kids, and this is supposed to be meaningful, but it's actually like really dystopian. And then in that one, it's like no, like something in the water just made them not want to have kids. But that's like kind of the same deal, right? Like, what's the difference between like spooky water that like makes you and spooky, thoughts or propaganda?
You're right, but I think you're right that it's the opposite. I mean, this sounds weird, but I always feel like art is just kind of like a visual representation of like kind of spiritual reality, because you can't really like, art has to be sort of tangible and it's very sensory, but you can't like, draw a picture of a thought or something invisible. So you have to like, you have to do it like an allegory kind of. And I mean, that's kind of what metaphor is, use something that you know about to refer to what you don't know about or something. But I think you're right. It's the opposite. Like people in that world, people want to have kids, but they mysteriously can't. And it's all kind of bleak and depressing. And in our world, people can have kids, even too much. Like everyone's getting their tubes tied or whatever, using contraception. They want to have kids, or they don't want to have kids, but they're sort of fighting against it. Which leads me to say another thing is that I think it's very like, obviously very like pro-life, not in a political way, but just like there's often this thing Catholics talk about the culture of life and the culture of death. Which is basically one that promotes human life and human flourishing. And the other is way more nihilistic. It's more about hedonism and ultimately like, well, just kill him or whatever. People are seen as sort of dispensable, even though no one would ever say that. That's how it hashes out. And this movie really sort of takes a stand against that. I don't know. It says something about the preciousness of life, which is really nice. It's what the world needs, I guess. Always to be reminded of what it already knows.
Reminded of what it already knows. Yeah, I mean, I just felt like some of the characters were more interesting. The auxiliary characters were more interesting than like the protagonist, the deuteragonist, whoever that was.
Yeah,
the antagonist, the secondary antagonist. I just felt like they were all kind of flat. They were flat.
Yeah, man. No, I agree. I think the characters, they all basically lack depth. But again, I think that's just a function of it kind of being an allegory. I mean, yeah, the characters were not very deep or interesting.
It is kind of allegorical. I'll give it that. It has a strong allegorical accomplishment, but I don't think it's. That's sort of a vanity project to some extent.
I like things like
maybe it's moralistic, more of a moralistic project, and the vanity is sort of a side effect.
Something which I definitely thought was weird was how the girl who had the kid was like weirdly like profane. Like if you watch the movie again, you realize like her dialogue is like very fake sounding. Like I don't think even if you're like a gutter kid from the slums of some weird African place,
Anglo-African, Afro-Anglican.
Yeah, you're just not gonna swear that much. It wasn't even like I was offended. It just didn't seem realistic. It just felt like she was written by a dude, basically. It's one of those times where like you realize that, you know, it's all just writing. But what I think is that his cinematography is so like naturalistic and realistic that it's easy to miss that. So you can gloss over all that and kind of ignore it and not care about it, because the whole steady cam, like handheld thing just makes everything feel so realistic that it overwhelms a little bit of corny dialogue here and there.
Yeah, and it's the Steadicam's work was brilliant, and the locations they chose were just really good. I mean, I don't know if maybe someone would have done it better, but I don't know if I don't think I could have, you know. And the set design was a little bit annoying. I mean, the only really good standout scene for that was the Jasper's house with the the dead wife or whatever. The
Oh yeah,
wheelchair.
all this. Well, I think there was a lot of detail in everything. I mean, I don't know.
No,
It
man, you have
just
to
felt
rewatch
realistic.
it because the most of the scenes are like interstitial, like English countryside, but there's a guy with an
Well,
AK. There's English countryside, but there's a guy with an AK. That's not great production design.
No, but I mean, like, for example, in the beginning, there's that little cafe where everyone's like looking all sad about little baby Teddy or whatever, the baby who was like the youngest man in the world who just died. But then you go from there to like the guy's office, and there's a lot of little knickknacks and sort of semi-futuristic things, and his own apartment has that kind of stuff. I don't. It does make it all seem like
Whose
it does have
office?
this sort of
Whose office was this?
the office of the protagonist. He like shows up to his like sort of bureaucratic job, and I remember there's a lady who's like crying about the baby dying, and like there's just a bunch of little things scattered about which make the place look real. Just like that creepy rich guy's house as well. I feel like that set design was really well done too. The sense this like sort of strained and decadent rich guy.
Yeah,
Weird
I
little
mean,
game, Rubik's Cube game that kid was playing with his
oh,
pills.
I don't remember that. I just felt like that was all like filler kind of. Let me see. I'll look up a photo. That was in the early part of the movie.
Yeah, because it's before he goes on the run. He's trying to get like a transport pass or something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the setting was established with these earlier interiors and stuff, but I don't think they were amazing. I mean, they were like good, but they were like few and far between. They're very much padded in the beginning of the film, and then later on you don't see any of it ever. And
Yeah.
for most of the flick, and then at the end it just gets turned into like sort of a dumpster, like the whole
Yeah. Well,
which
at the
is
end, everything
which it had
it's
to
all
look like.
bombed over and
I
washed
mean, yeah, they
out.
had to make it look like that. So, but it wasn't. It didn't seem original.
I don't know. I don't know what you're looking for.
I just thought the production design was very unoriginal, and I felt like the that makes it suffer somewhat.
Yeah.
Well, let's look what was its score on the websites? 84 on Metacritic, 75 7.9 on IMDb.
Yeah, it can't beat Paddington 2, huh?
92% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's really high. That's really high.
It's not as good as Black Panther, man. Not as good as Paddington 2, unfortunately.
Paddington 2.
See, that's what it is. I don't believe these rating systems, man. I like it. I say it's good.
Actually, it's comparable to Black Panther. Its ratings.
I know, dude. That's silly. Black Panther was like
It's actually got a higher score on IMDb.
I know, man. That's what I'm saying.
Than Black Panther.
Oh.
But but Black Panther got a 96. He got a 96 on Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes is the worst one though, because they just if it's just like a cash cow, they'll give it like a 90.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's like these.
Oh no, they call it okay. This is you have to like look into it because they have something called the tomato meter, which is like critical reviews, and then they have something called the
really?
audience score, which is like, so basically it's like one's like it's to the
I know
power
how
of
it works.
10. It's like
the tomato meter kind of boils everything down to thumbs up or thumbs down.
Okay.
So it's like you either call it, which is kind of weird because sometimes reviewers are like, we'll call it iffy, and like, so that doesn't work. And then, I guess the audience score is similar. I don't know. The audience gives it stars.
Well, the audience score is 79, but then this is the difference: is that the audience score has 50,000 plus ratings, whereas the tomato meter is only at 525 reviews.
I see 255. Which one are you talking about? Is that Black Panther?
Black
I'm
Panther.
looking at Children of Men right now.
All right, we're looking at Children of Men. Yeah, let's go.
Well, yeah, but the whole point of a critic is that they're more discerning than just the mob, at least in theory.
Yeah, but it's not really the mob. It's like the people that fill out the Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, they're even worse.
They could be. Yeah, homebodies and like, handicapped people that haven't left their apartment in a year. I don't know.
Just lunatics. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, lunatics are all the same, right? Tomato meter is 92%. Audience score is 85%.
West Side Story got 92. That's a darn good movie. Must be. Oh boy.
Well, who's best movie? Jason Adams says of My New Plaid Pants says best movie of the year. Quran just went to a whole new level with me. The class of filmmaking, the extended shots, those shots. Oh my god. Okay, so he's obviously is just going. He's coming all over it, which is not a good sign.
No need for vulgarity.
Well, he's not articulate. That's the point. He was saying like onomatopoeia basically. Oh my gosh! He's not even saying like sentences. They're fragments.
Yeah, well,
and this guy
yell out doing recaps.
And this guy works for the Sin Express podcast, which that could be us, at some point. Just podcasters. It literally is us, yeah. Alfonso Cuarón delivers a masterpiece that explores humanity and love in a world that's scarce of hope. And the full review is actually in Spanish.
See, a lot of guys just like to deliver encomiums.
Encomiums, yeah. Encomia.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. They just like writing about like this is. I remember, I don't know. Maybe I'm just.
Encomiorum.
Yeah.
No.
Show me a sci-fi movie that good. I like it. I think I like it more than Blade Runner, maybe.
That's a joke.
I haven't watched Blade Runner in a while though. Blade
Runner is a movie that you watch for like different aspects. This movie is like you watch it for like the one thing you like about it, and then rewatch it, and then you realize you're tired of it. Blade Runner, you watch it once, and you realize, it's like you watch it for different things. Blade Runner is like
I can see that. Blade Runner has this like insane, basically like I don't know, like
it has everything this movie doesn't, which is it has variety. It has a variety of accomplishments.
Good music too. I don't think there's that much music in Children of Men.
No, it's like the anti-Blade Runner. It's like, and it's preachier than Blade Runner. Blade Runner's plot made no fucking sense because it wasn't trying to be preachy. But this one, it's like its plot makes a little too much sense, and it ends up being preachy.
I thought you were saying it doesn't make sense.
Oh well, I mean, no, it makes sense. It's just not logical. Like you're like, oh yeah, the people aren't going to have kids, but then you look at okay, but then why is they think that they're going to be saved at the end because one kid was born? I thought the problem was that if it's logical about it, like it would be a gradual thing where they couldn't have kids. It wouldn't happen all of a sudden. So it makes sense in like a way that we like in like a visceral way, but it doesn't. The narrative doesn't like. It sounds like it was a story told by like a crazy person, like someone in an insane asylum talking about society.
All you need is one, and that's like it's like the seed of a new world or something.
It sounds like something like a lunatic in an insane asylum would tell you about society. Like we just need one person that's pure, one person that's born anew.
I think that's true.
Well, yeah, it's true. It's true about Jesus, but I don't know if it's true like now.
I think it's still true.
But it's sensible in the sense that we feel like hope springs anew, and we need but that's like pretty pat, I I mean, in Blade Runner, that was like such like a packaged in thing that weren't even aware that it was coming when it did. But in this movie, like hope was like so fetishized, and it was just like. I mean, I give it credit for it's hard to make like a deep movie that's science fiction thriller in like 2006 or whatever. It was hard to do that, but like I just don't think it makes it better than Blade Runner.
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps not. Blade Runner is pretty great. I like them both. That's all I can say.
You like them equally? What would you give? How would you rank them? As if they were on a seesaw, who would be weighing like slamming the other one down?
Now you know what? You know how I find it out? You say if you had to destroy one forever, which one would you destroy?
Children of Men.
Make it so it never existed. That's how you find out. Let's see. Between Blade Runner and the 3-hour classic by Ridley Scott, whatever the hell his name is.
Ridley Scott. All his movies are brilliant, except for like maybe 2 in the 90s, but they're all like really good. He did Thelma and Louise. He did Alien. He did Blade Runner. He did Gladiator. He did every genre, and every genre movie he's done has been really, really good. Who can say that?
Well, we're not talking about the director. We're focusing on movies. Yeah, honestly, it's kind of tough, but I would say the most sublime moments in Blade Runner are just more sublime. Like that tears and rain stuff, dude. You can't.
That was like ad-libbed because there was that much passion.
Yeah, just in the project. Yeah, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to give it. But it's
and the guy who did the cinematography, it's really good. This guy called Jordan Crenworth, and his son actually does a lot. Is a prominent cinematographer in Hollywood, but he didn't get the Academy Award. He got the BAFTA. And I saw the documentary about him, and they said that when he got the BAFTA, which is the British version of the Academy Awards, when he got the BAFTA, he went to the team he worked with, and he was like, "We won the BAFTA," and they were so honored that he included them because they knew that it was all his genius.
That's sweet.
And then she like died like not long after.
Yeah.
And then I saw the Roger Deakins. He got the Oscar recently for 1917, but he did all the Coen Brothers stuff beforehand, and so he's been in Hollywood for decades, and he's just really, really successful guy. And he was saying that when he redid the Blade Runner. I mean, he did the sequel or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was saying that he couldn't even get himself to try to copy Cronenworth because he
was just that good.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I think Blade Runner is the best science fiction movie ever. Better, and I think it's better than 2001.
Definitely. 2001 ain't that.
Well, 2001's the second best, but I still think Blade Runner's better.
I don't think 2001's that good. That's right. I'm being edgy. 2001 is like overly long. You can't tell what the hell's going on. Talk about like something being illogical, man. Like it makes sense if you read the book, but if you didn't read the book, it's just this like art house thing.
Well,
it was ahead of its time in its effects, but it's just like
it's not the coolest movie. Like it doesn't really have the most like it's not aesthetically very appealing, but it does have this interesting thing about artificial intelligence.
Either. Yeah, true. I mean, it didn't have to be like 3 hours long. I mean, it's darn good, but it doesn't have to be like, oh, darn, it's a long movie. But it's pretty darn good. And the amount of craftsmanship is great. But the thing with that guy, what's his name? What the heck's his name? Kubrick. He's like so obsessed with the details that he sort of misses the forest for the trees. I know it's like blithe to say that, but I get that sense sometimes. It's like so. It's like Flaubert. It's like you're so obsessed with getting everything perfect that you kind of like no one really needed it to be this good. Like you should have. I don't know. See, now I'm just being critical. It's obviously a great movie, but it's just not my cup of tea because I don't know. I'm senseless or something. I'm a tin drum. Warped block of wood. Ill-tuned clavier. Ill-tempered clavier.
The Mozart's great. I mean, his Pierre Beaumarchais was the librettist for his operas, and some of those operas were really like you got really good like social dynamics. They're kind of like kind of baked into the the absolute art or whatever. But I felt like in Children of Men, it was there was no such thing. I mean, I think Mozart's fucking operas have a better story, kind of, than Children of Men.
It could be.
I thought this movie was like, it's like of its time, and it's a good thriller. It's a lot of action. It's suspenseful, but it's basically like a sexed up horror movie. You know, like it's a horror movie that tries to be profound. That's kind of the way I look at it. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. But I'm also just not a fan of Alfonso Cuarón. You know, like
Yeah. What do you think about Birdman?
I never watched that.
I like it.
I saw Y Tu Mama Tambien in
I never saw that one.
that was a movie he made before he made this one.
Yeah.
And I thought it was sort of reprehensible. I
Really?
wasn't
Why?
because it's all the pretext is that these two guys are trying to fuck this old lady. It's like this like mom milf, but then they end up
Pretty bad.
fucking each other, and that's like
That's pretty bad.
you know. And it was like, oh, they were actually gay the whole time,
Yeah.
and I guess it's like psychologically interesting, but like it's just like a weird message.
Yeah, I'll say. What about Gravity? You see that one?
With Sandra Bullock, come on, I'm not gonna watch the movie with Sandra Bullock.
Okay.
What am I like? What is this? I saw Miss Congeniality. This is the only movie I'll ever see with her. I'll probably see. I'll probably.
I gotta see Miss Congeniality. It's such a like. I think from what I get, it's just such a straightforward, almost like corny movie. It's like The Devil Wears Prada, the semi-chick flick. I don't know why. It just seems to be interesting to watch it.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh man, that reminds me. This was so many years ago, but you like. I remember you came into my room like years ago, and I had some book called like it was like Female Psychology or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know. You just said something like, "Oh yeah, I understand why you have that book. You really need it." It was just a funny moment.
Was it really that much of a dick?
No, it was like, you know.
It was innocent.
It was in jest.
Okay.
I mean, it was true, but it was just in a funny way.
Yeah. That sounds like something like an older brother would say. Like, you know,
It was back in the day. I don't know.
That must have been like 9 years ago or 8 years ago.
Yeah, dude, it was very long ago.
Oh man, yeah, I remember you had that's one of the things. That's the first thing that charmed me about you, and it was also the last thing that charmed me about you, was that you had like a very like eclectic and intriguing assortment of books that I've never seen anyone really have before. No, it boded well, and now this is after we did our 4th podcast. I'm afraid that we can't be friends anymore because I've extracted all of the juice and genius out of you.
Yep.
The friendship is over. It's ended.
Got no more zest.
Yeah. That was 9 years ago, Will. Think about that.
Yeah.
And where's it gotten us? A mediocre podcast on the CW network.
Yeah.
It's daytime.
So
it's just it's not even in the primetime slot.
No, man, it's the dead zone. It's early. It's early morning. It's from 10 a.m. to.
You may as well watch gray television static.
Yeah, or the test channel.
Probably more entertainment value. Yeah, they're the test channel or with the bar with the colored bars.
Yeah, you gotta calibrate yourself. You know, calibrate your TV. Everyone needs some calibration from time to time.
I didn't actually realize that was a channel. I thought that was like an error message.
Yeah, like that's what you get when like everything's unplugged and it's like freaking out. I mean, it was a channel. I don't think it's needed anymore.
I also
It's
thought
kind of a
no. I
cheap
mean,
channel.
yeah. Well, those like vacuum tube TVs. Apparently, they're dangerous. Like they explode or something.
Yeah, no, I've
I
heard
mean, they're
that.
not actually dangerous. They're just like millennial dangerous. We're like, oh, don't touch
Yeah.
that.
Well, no, it's
You'll get
no,
rectal cancer.
no. What it is yeah. No, it's if you smash it, it explodes. It's just like
Isn't that what you want in a product?
yeah, no, it's awesome. It's like,
It's
all right,
like
you want
that's.
to destroy me? You really want me to blow up? Fine, I'll blow up. Like more than you even expected.
I'm telling you that punk rock era was like the best era to be alive because you had the organized chaos that you could just do for fun, but then you also had like the
Yeah,
old world kind of like, oh, I can go to a diner and get like a Cobb salad and just
yeah. Go to the pizza shop,
pizza
parlor.
shop, and there won't be and like everyone speaks English, you know.
Well, there won't be any punks in the pizza shop.
In the
You'll be
future,
punk.
no one's going to speak English or any language. They're all going to speak like this Italian, like Venetian trade pidgin language that the ports that developed. They're going to lift it out of the. Apparently, I learned something really peculiar. You know, the lingua franca is actually not French.
Isn't the term itself like Latin?
The term itself is Latin, and it comes from chroniclers of the Crusades, who were saying that they view what our language as just the language of the Franks. Like talking about
About Latin?
the infidels or whatever. Well, they were saying that the Mohammedans or whatever. Like what did they call them? The infidels. They called the Muslim soldiers and troops and politicians and stuff. They called all of them like the infidels. Oh, sorry, but when they talked about French, they would call it like the language of the Franks. But then also but because the Germans are descended from the Franks, also they called anything. I think they called anything
like anything European was just like that's just the language of the Franks.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you know what? I noticed because I for some reason I went on this blitz of like reading a little bit about the Crusades and stuff like that, and I noticed, like you said, that like I guess it's kind of dumb to say Muslims because there were like multiple empires in that region at the time, I think, but it was just this homogenous lump. But yeah, they referred to all the Crusaders as Franks, which I originally thought was like, oh, how ignorant that they would just be like, oh, they must be French because we're just, I don't know, we see everything like with fuzzy, unfocused vision. But I think the first Crusade was like, some guy said it was French. Like most of them were totally French. So like, it was justified to call them the Franks. Like if there was a giant crowd, like 1,000 French people, like 20 Englishmen. I mean, the ratio probably wasn't like that, but like you could reasonably call them the French. They're not just like dumb in saying that. Although I guess they kept it up for like centuries.
Well,
I don't know.
The Spanish weren't unified. It was just the Moors, right? And then so everywhere was kind of the Franks at one point in Europe.
Yeah.
Like it's not an exaggeration to say that Italy, France, Germany, Switzerland, it's all like the land of the Franks. It wasn't really an exaggeration because Charlemagne kind of conquered all of it, or his descendants took it over. Bavaria,
Yeah, exactly.
Once you get out to like Austria, it gets murky. England, of course, wasn't. Denmark wasn't. Poland wasn't. But
well, I mean, there's that that sort of roughness in history where like. I don't know if it was the Ottomans or whatever, but they just call like, oh, that's just Rome. Like they're all Rome. They're still Romans. Like they're just kind of confused or something. But I mean, obviously,
they were trying to like exaggerate their own conquering, their own conquests. They're like, we conquered Rome. It's like no. Yeah,
that was not. Thinking themselves.
And then of course the Byzantines called themselves the Romans in order to feel superior.
Yeah, the same reason everyone wants to.
It was like, and then in the West they made Rome a religion instead of actually having to occupy the land. You just go to church. And Catholicism ended up being like less about Jesus and more about pretending to be a Roman. Weirdly enough, but I mean it's obviously not like how it's operated, but that's how like the common people like dealt with it.
Yeah, no, there is. I mean, it's basically like when a religion fails, they fail in different forms. Like, for example, the Eastern Orthodox, I would say, are like, it falls to this phyllotism of just like national countries being like more important than religious affiliation. And you could say the Catholic thing is like, you just end up like you could say that there was this chauvinism where like I don't know, it's just like you kind of think you're the best or something, which is kind of inevitable because every religion believes they have the truth, but no one's really as like blatant or strident about it, or no one was as blatant or strident about it, I think, than the church was. Which I don't know, it's not that bad, but yeah, I think it can lead to a kind of chauvinism in some people or something. I don't know. Gotta hold to the truth. Everybody does.
Well, I mean, Children of Men is interesting as it's antithetical to Catholicism and Orthodoxy. It's very, don't reproduce.
I don't think it's saying that. I mean, no one's reproducing, but that's kind of that's the villain. The villain is sterility, which I think is just a sign of like a deeper sterility. And there's the whole. It seems very religious, like what's her name being pregnant? How she jokes about how it's a virgin birth, and all the sort of allegories are there.
So, this is what I'm wondering. I mean, on the topic of birth, like, why is reproduction even important? I mean, obviously, you do it.
Well, I mean, if you stop doing it, then you don't continue to exist in history in any form, except, I guess, in like a symbolic form or something, which is sort of less significant.
Yeah, but let's say like you're drastically reducing the population. Because you think about it this way, if there's so many people, like the glory is watered down and everyone has to share it. Whereas if there's
I don't think it has to be like that. I actually think that, frankly, when I meet people who are from big families, in a paradoxical way, they're more vivacious. Like they have more energy, they have more life to them, and like only children are kind of almost like sort of flat, and like people from small families, I feel, are just kind of like they just kind of have less to them. I heard this guy arguing that like the minimum family size should be 3 kids because like then it's a democracy, then it's a community. It's not like Hegel's master-slave dialectic. It's like it's the rule of 2/3, and then there's at least like a freaking middle class. Like it's just better. And I kind of agree with that. I mean, I'm not criticizing anyone. It's obviously I only have one brother. Most people I know are only children or only have one sibling. But I just find that like it makes for like kind of more interesting people or something. I get what you mean that just the structure of the modern world though does seem like, some guy did a statistical analysis and he found like compared to how many people lived in like ancient Athens or antiquity, it's like insane how many like humongous titans of whatever there are. And then compared to now where, we have like the same amount of geniuses every year, if not less. It's like we have like 500 times more people. Like why would that be the case? But then someone might say, well, we've already grasped all the low-hanging fruit. But I think you have a point that there's something else to it. It's almost like having so many people like makes you want to pass the buck. That well, someone else will probably do it. But if enough people do that, it's like the tragedy of the commons. Whereas in like Athens, it's like I'm the only man. Like there's a sense of freshness. Like everyone could do their own thing and be the first one to ever do it. That must have been very exciting. I don't know. But I'm done.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's conspicuous that we need people to keep the ship, afloat, keep it moving, and then eventually we'll get flying and we'll go out to outer space. But I just feel like on a guttural level, visceral even, that we need to like curtail some of the population that's been, mushrooming out in the last 50, 100 years. Because we're overdeveloped in the worst cases, and then underdeveloped in the other side of the worst cases. Like it's just this. We're living this miasma of sort of like human rights violations combined with infrastructural deficits, and I don't think like having kids left and right is solving problems for anyone.
I think there are certain. I mean, this kind of like eugenics, but I always say that there are certain people who should be more prudent with their reproduction, which is not to say they should stop. They should just like, there's a lot of social effects too.
Of all people, my dad told me this. He said that when he was living in Africa in Mali, in like the chaparral or whatever, he was saying that the people there, they just have kids because they can feed them a little bit, and as long as they have like a person, they can put that person to work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how it works in, I don't know, pre-industrial
And it's like
societies.
it's like they only have kids to like put them to work. They don't have kids to like as like for fun, you know.
Yeah, or they don't have it for any like idealistic reason. It's
Yeah,
actually
it's not.
pragmatically
It's
it's more
pragmatic.
effective. Yeah, if you live in an agrarian culture, it's more effective to just have as many kids as you can and have them all like just become farmers ASAP. Um, but I think there's still an inherent value to humanity. I think some people should
I
have.
think if you're like if you can do it, do it. If you can't afford it, I would say just don't.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should. That's what I'm talking
Like
about.
I
Like
think
movies.
I'll have kids because I think I'd be a good dad. But then I have some friends that are like, man, maybe they wouldn't be a good dad. I don't know. You know,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think
maybe
that
they shouldn't.
people who would make good parents should have children. I mean, I don't know. People who would make terrible parents, I guess, should have fewer. I don't know. It sounds kind of. It always kind of sounds kind of eugenic, and I want to. Just the value of human life again is so great that it's like it takes quite a bit to like weigh the scales against it, but it's possible. Like you said, if you can't like feed them, you can't shouldn't do it. I don't know. It's all quite theoretical. I need to have. I mean, it would be something else if I were
If you could live anywhere in the country, not the world,
in the country.
that's
Yeah.
that's the second question. Is the world?
Okay.
If you
Yeah.
could live anywhere in the country, where would it be?
Probably Oregon.
No, dude, really?
Yeah.
You went where in Portland?
Yeah, maybe Portland. I mean, that's all. That's the only place to really go, isn't it? It's like the only big city, I think, right? It's like Salem or something, but nobody knows what that
Oh,
is.
Salem's funny, man. Salem reminded me of like a crackhead version of The Simpsons.
Well, that's it fits because Simpsons was from Oregon, wasn't it, or
Yeah, they
Washington?
were from. There's a town called Springfield in Oregon that's
Yeah,
next to the college that
Matt Groening went to.
Matt Groening went to, and I went to
Evergreen.
I went to a couple places there. They're like sort of landmarks, low key. Like in Eugene, they're right next to each other. Like you take like it's like a 10-minute drive. They're like right next to each other
Yeah,
over the highway,
yeah,
kind of.
yeah.
And
I remember
I
that.
went
Yeah, you were talking.
I went to the
about
tavern that it was the basis for Moe's Tavern.
Wow.
And then I spent the
The
night in Springfield at like a drive-by motel, like a drive-in
the
motel.
prototype. Yeah.
And that place was funny because you go to like the 7-Eleven in the morning, or you go to like the guy who worked,
Yeah.
and they remind you of like
About
some
proof.
they were like fat country women working at the
Oh yeah.
7-Eleven. But I was like, this 7-Eleven's the only 7-Eleven in this entire town.
It's got to be. Yeah.
So I'm like, it's got to be connected to it. Quickie Mart.
Yeah, it's based on. Yeah, it's Quickie Mart.
And then the other thing, because the
Right.
town itself was just a street. The Springfield was just a street that had like these old shops in it, like really old. Like they sold like Christmas ornaments and like snowmen, nutcrackers and stuff. Like they like these like kitschy Christmas things that like only like
You went there.
forest people would ever buy, and prairie stuff, you know. And then anyway, I got like Home on the Prairie, right? But then what's the lobby, the checkout room, whatever for the motel.
Yeah.
That guy reminded me of like the character, the principal from The Simpsons, or the priest.
Oh yeah, yeah.
No, he looked like the priest from
Mr. Lovejoy. Yeah.
He looked a lot like that guy. And it was, and then you're like, I hate to say this, because it sounds a little deranged, but when you're in that town, you start viewing things in this frame that's similar to the Simpsons frame, where it's like low to the floor, and and the frame is like, it shows the building and the character, and you start to see things like you're watching the show, and it's probably like a self-fulfilled prophecy, because it's the Springfield
suggestion. Yeah.
But then Eugene I didn't really vibe with Eugene. I felt like it was too wishy-washy, and like it's really small and they don't have an airport, but it's pretty nice. It's just like it's like a 2-hour drive though from Portland, which is kind of far.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost as far as like Seattle.
Jeez, yeah.
See, and Tacoma is a funny town, man. I got stranded in Tacoma.
Like all crime-ridden. Someone told me that. It seemed like weird, but.
Well, yeah, because it was like a steel city or something for a while.
Oh, so it's like the urban blight. What,
Yeah, urban
is
blight.
Seattle
Yeah.
is Seattle more populous than Portland? Let me see.
Yeah, I think it's quite a bit more populous.
That's so weird. 'Cause I
Probably
feel like Portland is.
it's not as much as you might guess, but it's like
Yeah, no, it's about 80. Well,
80,000
yeah,
more.
yeah.
Yeah, that's nothing. Yeah, Portland makes Portland seem giant. I didn't even. I thought it would have been like 200,000 more, maybe 150.
And Denver's like 20,000 more.
Denver is the worst city I've been to in this country.
Wow.
The worst city, worse than Phoenix.
Wow, man.
You know,
Why? What's so bad about it?
it's just it has this sort of it just doesn't have a lot of anything.
Yeah.
Like if there's
Oh,
no
I'm
thing to
sorry.
do there.
I'm thinking of Spokane. Spokane's the one that's supposed to be all sus.
Spokane, I've driven through. I went to the airport a number of times there. I've driven through it, and I have friends that live out there, and I've had a friend that lived on like a farm out there for like years and years.
Wow.
And I have a current friend that like lives like near the downtown, and well, they're both current friends, but one of them is actually lives there. And then I made it sound like I didn't wasn't friendly, whatever. But Spokane is more chill, I think, than Denver. Because
Yeah.
Spokane's small and you don't expect much, and you just get in and get out. But Denver is a big city, but it just doesn't have a lot to do.
Yeah.
That like, I mean, it has stuff to do in like a pinch, but it doesn't have stuff that you would like. I mean, I guess if you were like really connected, Denver might be fine. But I felt like it just as a tourist, it was the worst city I've ever been to.
Wow.
Like you could go to a retarded Midwestern city that's not about shit, has no economy.
Yeah.
And it's just like the butt of every joke, and it would be like twice as cool as Denver.
Wow, like what? Like Boise or something?
Kansas City, Des Moines. No, Boise's not the Midwest. Boise's west of Denver, bro.
Yeah, no, I didn't know you were talking about the Midwest. Yeah, Des Moines.
I think Boise's west of the Rocky Mountains, dude. Okay.
Yeah, no, I
know. Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, St. Louis, Kansas City. I don't know. Maybe Little Rock's cool. I've never been there. I mean, it's closer to New Orleans than Denver is. I don't know.
Dude, did I go to St. Louis? That's so weird. I went to St. Louis. It felt so much more south than it actually is. An odd place. And then Louisville. I remember Louisville. Dude, that feels like the freaking deep south. But Louisville is like...
Louisville's almost the Midwest.
It's like the northern half of the country. That's so weird.
Well, Louisville is...
It's on the
same. It's almost like in Ohio, but Ohio is like it's like a really white state, and it's also like a lot of racism.
Yeah.
And so Ohio is like it's like a mixture of a southern state and a midwestern state.
Yeah, that's so odd. What do you think about New York, Mr. Big Shot?
Well, this is where I live. New York is it's like generic, but it's not. It's got the opposite thing. It's like the opposite of Denver. There's so much to do that you just, even though it's generic, you don't really care. Whereas Denver, it's got like this angle to it where you'd think it'd be really cool because it's by the mountains and stuff. But then you go there and there's just nothing to do blatantly. Like, I mean, you could probably go to like a pizzeria and just chill and like, big fucking deal, right? Like, I'm kind of spoiled in the way of traveling in American cities because I like know which ones I like. So when I go to one I don't like, I get like depressed. But like, if you didn't know better.
Which ones do you like? What are your favorites?
Miami, New Orleans, Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston.
Why is Miami your first?
It's not my first. It's not my first. It was the first.
What's your first? Yeah.
My first is good question, man. I mean, I thought Boston was pretty cool. I might go with that one, but I think that's a gut. That's like my gut feeling about it.
Go with your gut, don't they say?
I think Philadelphia was, but Philadelphia it was more of like a special occasion. I wouldn't go there like I don't know. Philadelphia is a little bit of like that's a little bit of like a city you just go to drink. It's not really like
yeah.
It's not really a city you go to like feel good about yourself or something. It's not constructive really going there. I haven't been to DC in a while, but I bet you DC is not terrible. But yeah,
Come on, man. None of those are the best, though. Can't be the best.
I like Portland quite a bit, but Portland doesn't feel like a city. It feels like a suburb on acid or something. Like, I don't know. Not on acid. It feels like it feels like a suburb on coke. To be honest with you, it's chattery. Like it's like big enough that you feel like you have to meet people all the time, but it's small.
Yeah.
But it's suburban enough that you feel like it's like pointless to like try. So I kind of feel like a hop head. I didn't even do coke when I was there, but I hear that it's like a coke head kind of place. Like it's like low key. A lot of criminals like hang out there because it's just so off the map. Portland. In hindsight, Seattle is not that bad.
I just like all the nature to it, man. That's all.
But I would say Boston or L.A. I think Boston or L.A. are my two.
Really?
Yeah. And LA
Why
because it doesn't take itself too seriously, and there's still a lot to do.
Yeah, that's very true.
And that's like kind of the best of both worlds. But then, and in Boston, I thought Boston would take itself really, really seriously, like be pretentious. But when I was there, it actually was kind of whimsical. It felt kind of whimsical, and I was really charmed by that. Cool. And New York takes itself really seriously, and that gets old.
Yeah, that's funny.
But I don't know. New York's good in a way because, like I said, you can get anything here, and it's like pretty easy to get. You can take a train and get there. It's like convenient.
Yeah.
And that's also what I liked about Portland. I felt like Portland was pretty convenient. Like if you had some weird hobby you wanted to do, that people would frown upon in other parts of the country, you could do it in Portland. Like you could find a group. Even though it was like even though it's like doesn't really seem like a kind of place for like eccentric meetups.
Yeah.
It's actually like sort of defined by that, like that. All
cool.
The weirdness of Portland is defined by these eccentric meetups that you can do.
Yeah.
So that's what but Denver, it was kind of like the worst of Portland combined with like the worst of New York. It was like irrelevant and small and suburban, but it also took itself seriously, and it was generic.
Yeah,
it was like it had this like off-brand old like 90s corporate sort of.
Jeez, dude.
Not even 90s, like early 2000s, early odds.
It sounds cocky, but my thought about Denver is always like it's the people who live there are just the people who like didn't have the guts to like make that last push over the Rockies,
Yeah, I mean, I think the people that live there really like skiing, snowboarding, and like, but they're also like they really want to like want like a lot of money. It's like greedy people that like skiing, and that's you think about that. That's not the best combination for a personality.
Yeah,
I mean, you really could have a better personality than liking snowboarding and liking money. Yeah, At least in New York, there's like culture. You can't really go to the nature that easily, so you just culture. So it's a nice. It kind of combines well. Like I'm greedy, but I'm greedy because I'm artistic, and it combines well.
Be a fine art dealer,
Yeah, something. I mean, but it's distinguished. But being like a ski bum that also wants to rake in the dough is pretty crass. Like Denver's like a crass town. It's like Vegas that you don't like. It's like more sustainable, it's like not that different from Vegas. When I was there, I was surprised by how much it reminded me of Vegas, despite being like not like it in any like concrete way. I guess the only thing that's similar is that there's a lot of tourism.
Yeah.
But
I'll tell you what, there's a lot to do in Vegas. Vegas is fun for that reason.
I could see myself buying property in Vegas because it's cheap and there's so much to do, and you just fly there in the winter or whatever. But my thing with Vegas is that the water is like is dubious.
Brackish. Yeah, dude, it is like it's the city that never should have existed. And in terms of nature, like I feel like it's just if you like.
Yeah, and the people like are the people even like aren't they like disreputable? Like isn't it like a disreputable place? Like I wouldn't want to hang out with a bunch of people that are like questionable origins, and I wouldn't want to be suspicious of those people and have to hang out in like seedy areas of Vegas all the time. And if I wanted to,
Well, I don't think it doesn't sound like a nice place to live, maybe to visit. It's about people. It's tourism. People go there to have fun and then go away.
But
I don't.
they go to have fun, but it's like childish, autistic, not autistic, but it's like I say autistic too often, but it's this childish, manic fun that ends up in like a spiraling out in depression. It's like
Yeah,
what goes up
it's
must come down. Hoo hoo. It's like
yeah, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. No, you know what it is? It's like I feel like it's just like Protestant. Like when white people try to have fun, they just kind of like abuse drugs and like they're like too efficient about it. Like, okay, I have my stripper here, I have
that's not
my
a
hard liquor
Protestant
here.
thing. They do that everywhere.
I don't know. No,
You think they're not doing that in like Colombia, dude? Of course they're not in Colombia. Yeah,
yeah,
Colombia is probably
right.
more stereotypical about coke and strippers than anywhere in the world. Think about it.
Yeah, it's just like sleek hedonism compared to like this. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Who cares? I have nothing
No,
to say.
you're right though that it's like a desert, and that just makes it seem trashy, kind of. But I think that's a little bit of like a
It's not it's not like fine living. It's not real fun. It's not real fun. It's like this. It's like giving you what you think you want. Except it's not even relevant anymore because our generation doesn't really want that. I don't think. It's of a different time.
yeah. I mean,
Anyway.
there's no our generation. It's just what you want. How are you going to get it? Those are all that matter. It's just no. My generation doesn't believe in the principles of fun. Of what it's all just about what you want and finding it for yourself. I don't have time for what other people want. You know what I mean? Unless it's threatening me in some way, but I don't have time.
Yeah, it's not that you do it because other people do it, but it's just like yeah. I'm not.
I don't even really
saying.
believe in generations. I mean, I think that there's like an element of like we're used to this technology, so we use it more. But like I don't think that's like
There's different ways to dice people up, but I think there are similarities that people share. It's beyond technology, but they're not completely
no. I mean, I
homogenous.
believe in generations as like a demographic. I just don't believe in them as like something that how we should how we should process society is like. Well, this generation is fucking stupid, and this generation is a little bit less stupid.
No, I think it's valid to do that. I think there is enough diversity that it's not hard and fast, obviously, with any category, but there's something to it. I mean, I don't know. You got to see if it has any predictive power or something. It's all vain anyway.
There's definitely a lot more Asians with plastic surgery than there's ever been in the history of the human race.
What are you looking at, man?
I was just thinking about that's kind of what I think of this generation as being as an Asian with a fake ass.
I don't know.
An Asian woman
right.
with who doesn't know how to read, and she's like got like like 20,000 followers on Instagram.
See, you're proving your own point. I think I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
But that's what you're saying. You're saying that, like,
I just don't live. I mean, you're right. You're right. I don't live in that world or something. I don't know what world. I don't live in a world. You're right. There is no world.
And that's the woman I'm going to marry. It's just an Asian with a fake ass that has 25,000 followers and has an escort, but you don't know that because she hides it. But you don't care because you just assume she's doing it anyway. And actually I'm not going to marry her. It's going to be like 20 different people or 30 different people that marry her.
You got to save this for your great American novel.
All at the same time.
Very textureful and rich things. We still live?
Yeah.
How many viewers do we have? Surely in the world as big as ours. I feel it's been a while.
It's been a while. It's been an hour and 40 minutes, just about. I have to do this Latin thing. I'm like, I have other stuff I have to do for the thing. I don't know. All right, and I'm always checking my emails and stuff. All right, okay, it's been an hour and 40. I'll end it right now. Stay on the line though.